All right, now we're going to talk about what your net worth is. So, net worth is pretty simple. It's going to be your assets. And, guys, what are assets? These are the things you own minus your debts. Okay, minus your debts. So, these are the things that you owe. So, for example, let's say you own a house, and let's say you own your car outright. At that point, it's an asset. Let's say you have money in the bank, so let's call that a savings account. And let's say you have investments, so you have some sort of stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Okay? However much that adds up to, that is your amount of assets in this world, minus your debts. Okay, so let's say you have a loan. Let's say that you have a credit card. Let's say you don't own your house or your car. I'm going to use a different color here. Let's say a house or car. If you don't own either of those outright, well, then those have to be subtracted away. And so let's just use a very simple example. Let's say that for your net worth in assets, you have $100,000 when we add up the price of your car and maybe the amount of money, it's called equity, that you have in your house, minus, and then like let's say that you let's say that you actually owe a lot on your house. Let's say that you owe $200,000 on your house, you owe $30,000 on your car. Okay, so in this case, and then let's say you don't have any loans or credit cards. Well, in this case, you would say that you have a negative net worth of $130,000. Okay, let's go ahead and look at another example. Well, just another easy, nice example. Let's say, here's example 2. Let's say that you actually own, let's say you own $400,000 worth of assets minus, and you only have $20,000 in debt. Well, check it out. Then you now have a net worth of $380,000, and now you are positive. Okay, so net worth is the amount of assets you have minus your debts. Okay, your assets can really be broken up into two types. You have your liquid assets and you have your illiquid assets. Now remember, we talked about this earlier. Liquid is things that you have instant access to the cash. So one of your liquid assets is your income. Every time you get paid, you have access to that money. There's your savings account. So any money that you have in savings, you can use pretty much immediately. And lastly, I'm even going to put in here stocks, because you can sell your stocks and have access to that money within a 1 week time frame. What are things that are illiquid? Well, there would be your house, there would be your car, and then there'd be literally any other physical asset that you own. So this could be anything like if you have any hard copies of video games, if you own a washer, or you own a dryer, okay? Maybe you own a microwave. True story, most apartments actually come with microwaves, but maybe you own your own microwave because you have your own house. Maybe you have your own refrigerator. All of these things are illiquid assets. They have some sort of value. You know, in the case of like a video game, you know, GameStop might give you 10 cents for a video game because they're incredibly cheap. Maybe your washer or dryer, maybe you could sell those for $100 each if you have a nice pair. Your microwave, maybe you could sell it for $20. But these aren't really things that you would want to sell to get any sort of money from. So we're going to focus on your liquid assets right now. These are the things you have instant access to. Okay, so let's say you have a debt that comes out of nowhere. Let's say you could have a medical bill. You could be in a car crash and need a new car, or need a down payment for a new car. Let's say, you know, your toll tag could come in, and hey, guess what? You owe the toll tag company, you owe them $16. Where would you ideally want to pull money from? Would you want to sell stocks to cover these debts? Well, the answer is no. So one thing that a lot of financial experts recommend is having some sort of savings. And in fact, guys, experts recommend that you have 3 to 6 months of your expenses covered in savings. Now, a lot of people have a difficult time doing this, but having some sort of savings will actually help you encounter any sort of emergency. And we're actually going to look at what kind of interest you can grow in a savings account. Okay, since a savings account is kind of the ideal to stack some cash into for emergency situations, typically banks will give you some sort of interest rate. So currently right now you could expect an interest rate of about 0.5% if you're lucky. Okay, or if we were to write that as a decimal, 0.005 in an interest, or we could call this a rate of return. What's an easy way to conceptualize 0.005? Well, that means that for every $1,000 that you save a year later, so let's just write this, a year later, you would have $1,005. So essentially the bank is going to pay you $5 to keep your money in their bank. Now, your savings account interest rate, this interest rate right here, is actually typically it's almost controlled by what's called the Federal Reserve. And y'all should ask Mr. Sharp more about the Federal Reserve. But as the Federal Reserve decides to raise interest rates, well, then this number could grow. If they decide to lower interest rates, well, then that number is going to shrink. So whatever the interest rate percentage for the Federal Reserve is, the more money you're going to get from your savings account. Now let's kind of run through a very quick example of how you can measure growth of a savings account over time. Okay, so let's say you have a savings account, and let's say you actually do it. You save up 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, and you save $18,000, and you put all that into your savings account, and let's say you hold that in your savings account for 6 years. How much money would you have at a 0.5% interest rate? Okay, well, what are we going to do? We're going to use our exponential growth formula. F of x is equal to ab to the power of x. And here, we're going to hold this in for an amount of time that we said we're going to hold this in for 6 years. And we know that our initial starting amount is this 18,000. Okay. And once again, we're going to raise this up to the power of 6 years. But the question becomes, what is our growth rate? Well, remember, in this is a very easy example. You say, okay, this is really 0.05%. We're going to add that to 100%, because remember, you're starting out with 100% of 18,000, and so that's going to equal 100.05%. And so when we want to go ahead and convert that into an exponential growth rate, we have to take that decimal and move it 2 places to the left. So we get 1.0005. And now you can find out how much money would you have at the end of 6 years if you essentially treated your savings account as your only form of investment. Okay, so let's take a look. We're going to go over to our Desmos Scientific Calculator. We're going to say, okay, we have 18,123 parentheses. We'll put our 1.005 close parentheses. Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I added in too many zeros there. It should just be 1 point. Oh my gosh, guys. Y'all see, here was my mistake. I added a 0 in there. So, guys, this should actually be 100.5%. And so this should be 1.005. My mistake, y'all. Alright, so we're back here. We got our 1.005. And remember, we're going to click this A to the B. We're going to put in the number 6. And at the end of 6 years, you would have $18,546. Let's just round to whole numbers. $18,546 in the bank. And guys, y'all can see that the amount of interest, like how much money did you make just by putting your money in the bank account, would be about $500 $1,046. Okay, and the question for you is this a good investment? Is this a place where you should keep your money? And how much should you keep your money for? And I want y'all to really think on that.